Catus Maximus here, this time with a quick review of the Capri mid-length 3/8" drive 6-point impact socket set. These do have these, I guess, cardboard reinforcers. They came just shrink wrapped in these cases, which I suppose is, just fine, really. I always end up putting them on socket strips. One with the Capris, you really got to kind of do your homework when you're looking at specific socket sets, things that are like standard sets, 3/8 chrome, short wells or deep well sets. You have a lot of choice. But when you're starting to get into a little bit less common stuff, such as mid-length sockets, 12-point impacts and stuff, you kind of got to do your homework because different companies have different set orders. Some have different ideas on their size ranges and number of pieces. So when it comes to these 6-point mid-well impact sockets, the Capris essentially came out on top for budget, decent quality sockets. They are, as we can see, laser etched, and they do have a real thick or a real deep and actually pretty large roll stamping. I really like that a lot. Here we have the Sunex midwells, and the other reason I like them was exactly this, that they are essentially right in the middle between a deep well and a short well 3/8 socket sizes. Well, the Sunex were just like a little bit on the short side. So that's one of the other reasons I went with them, is they were cheaper than the Sunex 6 points, and they give you just a little bit more reach. Oh, and I was going to compare. We can see the Sunex roll stamped, but these Capris are actually a lot easier to read. Didn't want to mention that. They don't really chamfer the input, which is just fine because that gets chamfered by the impact wrench when you use it. So having things like, a nice little chamfer, not quite as big a deal. This is the gear wrench mid-lengths in 3/8, we can see it's exactly the same size. So did like that. And of course, being about half size, here's our deep well there. So it just allows you to access fasteners in particular situations, because a short well socket and even the shortest extensions is going to be longer than one of these mid-length sockets. And so I see why these are common. And actually on other reviews of mid-length sockets, some reviewers say these are really what they go to because they just are the first choice just because they work in so many situations. So anyway, also like the Capris because a lot of times I don't need a smaller sizes. So this metric set is actually 8mm through 22. And it even has right here the 20mm, which very few sets come with. But I did like the fact that it went up to 22. It was 8 through 22, where the Sunex set is and it's a 15-piece set. The Sunex set was 7 through 19, so I kind of did that because it gives me a few more of the large sizes. The fractional set seems to be pretty standard for most manufacturers. 12-piece, 5/16, right up through 1 inch. And they all seem to be made pretty good. As you can tell, they are super oily. Actually, these are a bit greasier than even... these are some of the greasiest impact sockets I've ever gotten. I've gotten some pretty greasy ones, but I don't mind that at all either. Much better to have oily sockets than to have rusty sockets, especially since these are, getting shipped from overseas. Something else I'll say about them is, and I don't mind it, is I was looking at a lot of them. These are a little bit more traditional, meaning that they are slightly thicker walls. When I got these Tecton and the Tecton and that's the Tecton and the Sunex ones, these are advertised as thin wall, and I can see why, because we compare them to the Capri, it's a little bit hard. But if I flush them up, you can see that's quite a bit thicker. Actually, I have the bottom, so if we center it, but still, the Capris are just a more traditional thickness, so they are going to be just a little bit thicker. So you still may want to consider these 12 points from Tecton or Sunex if you want impacts that are just a little bit thinner walls. But I do like the idea of the solidity. Anyway, might as well do some impacting. I like doing that just to really see heat treatment, and there's a reason. Here we go. When I do my little impact test, it's just driving into a block of wood just to do a quick test. Of these Supertanium, these are like 8-line bolts. These are super hard bolts. I've actually run this bolt in and out of that block of wood a couple dozen times. Really very hard fasteners. And I pretty much do it with the same impact wrench. So this is the Sunex I demonstrated with. You can just see a little bit of silvering inside there when I did that. And we can see on the input side almost no I mean, there's just a little bit of wear where you can see I used the impact wrench on it. These are the Capri stubby sockets that I got a while ago and reviewed. And when I did the same operation, you can see that actually, you know, rounded out the corners just a bit more than on these Sunics. So I want to see if these... so it seemed that the Capris were just a little bit more on the softer side, once again, as compared to maybe Sunics or Tecton. I know the Tectons, these are chrome vanadium impact sockets, but we'll see how they do. Alright, got the little DeWalt brushless here. I do have the 5 amp on there, so it'll be hitting pretty good. Man, impacts are loud. Anyway, so there's a little demonstration, and the reason something like that is so valid, and I'm going to go and call it, Capri does use a little bit softer. No, saying softer metal could just simply mean that they, during the heat treatment process, they only heated this up to 1500 degrees rather than 1550, or they may have quenched it a little bit more slowly. It may have been a hotter oil bath. Surprisingly small changes in the heat treatment process of the very same materials can make pretty big differences in the hardness. But the reason I'm going to call it, so I dug up both my 3/8 and the 1/2 inch Sunexes that I've used on the same demonstrations. There's the Capri. We can actually see it even raised the edge a little bit. That was just through that one operation. You can imagine what the socket would look like if I was a carpenter and I had was running dozens or even hundreds of bolts of those a week compared to the Sunex. Compared to this Sunex, they're definitely a little bit softer. So I'll have to say that Sunex sockets are harder than Capri sockets. And oddly enough, on a side note here, the Sunex mid-length 3/8 sockets are almost the same as the Shortwell Sunex 1/2 inch drive sockets. Isn't that strange? What an odd coincidence, but that they're both almost exactly the same height. You do get a little bit more reach because the 3/8 anvil is going to be shorter than a 1/2 inch anvil, but anyway, something I just noticed. So, as far as whatever I pay, I think I paid about $92 or something for all these sockets here, and it's a pretty good deal. For me, these are going to last just fine. But it's something to keep in mind that they may wear a little bit more quickly than some even slightly more expensive, say, Tectons or Sunex. But they still are a quality tool. I really do like that they put oversized roll stamping. That's actually an excellent idea. And I do like their set that they offer, an 8 through 22 15-piece in metric, is really pretty decent. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time, Catus Maximus out.